Welcome to Let's Talk About Gay Stuff.
Woo! Let's talk about gay stuff.
Let's talk about gay stuff. We're going to do that one day. All right. We're the podcast where we talk about gay stuff and discuss the week in LGBT history. Woohoo! Woo! We are Tony. No, you're Tony.
Oh my Thomas.
God. I don't even know my own name.
Thomas.
When you get old. We are Thomas.
This whole time I thought
Tony.
you were Thomas. Oh, Kendall.
Oh, hey. Yeah, speaking of. All right. This
We're in New Orleans.
And we haven't even been drinking
We're
yet.
reviewing the week of October 13th through October 20th, and we'll discuss Brokeback Mountain, Divine, and the National March on Washington for gay and lesbian gay rights. All right, so lesbian and gay rights. I got that. All right. Just a quick plug. November 5th is Election Day, and across many
Oh, so you're into
of
those
the
quick
cities and
plugs.
states.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. And make sure you vote. Registration deadline has already passed in most places, but make sure you go vote on November the 5th. All right. I had to do that. I mean, I want to make sure
I agree.
people know
I
that they
agree.
have to go vote. All right. Because voting matters, right? I mean, we're looking at, and I don't want to spend too much time talking about
I do have it. Well,
Trump,
go ahead.
But,
No, I ain't
but
talking
I'm
about
just
Trump.
like, there's,
Not
I
New
mean,
Orleans.
meltdown. It's insane what's going on with that guy, but by the day. But anyways, that's all I got to say.
Well, I do have it 2 seconds. So, like, I do this run club on Wednesdays at a brewery, and there's, like, all these straight people.
Wait,
and
do you run or you just booze?
I've been running the last couple weeks.
He just goes to
now
the
that my
run club.
hernia's finally...
He just stretches.
Okay. So, there's all these libertarians that are like, people say my vote doesn't matter, but, my vote showed that... I'm like, okay, well, like it or not, we have a two-party system. Libertarian just splits the vote. Whatever.
You're saying, who cares
Well,
about your
we're
right?
in New Orleans right now, so there's one party.
All right.
Okay,
That's
in the
a party
hotel
we can all
room.
get behind. That you're right. There is something about New Orleans that is unifying, at least on the street of Bourbon, where you can be gay, straight, no one cares, and
Anything.
and then everything goes.
I cut my teeth in New Orleans.
what's-
and my wrist.
what's-
And my...
What's the saying?
Did you pop your cherry in New Orleans?
Laissez le ventre really.
Yeah.
Let the good times roll.
Yeah, so that's what we do.
Let the
We
good
are. So
times
yeah.
roll.
We did the Facebook Live noting our hotel near Bourbon Street. We are recording live in New Orleans.
Mm-hmm. The smell of
Essentially on
carcasses
Bourbon
and urine
Street.
is
Yep.
wafting in the air,
You
just
guys-
like New Orleans.
Whoa.
What sort of damage are you going to do this weekend? Spending the weekend in New Orleans. This is, it'll be fun. I love coming here.
Well, tell why we're here.
Why are we here? To record a
You
podcast.
old man, it's your 40th birthday.
Oh, yeah, I turned 40.
Wow.
You forgot. You've already forgotten it's your birthday and your name. You called yourself Tony earlier.
I
Wait,
did.
thank
Bless
God I'm
it.
not the only one getting Alzheimer's.
Yeah, I don't remember. That's why earlier you were like, oh, did I say that? I have no idea what I say most times.
Well, you know why you forgot it's your birthday?
Why?
Because you are forever knowing as this is the month that I formally got engaged.
Yeah, this is the month.
So from now on, this is my engagement month.
That's the classic.
And nothing else.
I thought you got engaged in September.
No, I'm kidding.
Well, he's taken over. Used to be when we dated, it was his birthday month and nothing else. And now it's the month that he announced he was getting engaged. Not
Okay.
even, to your point, Tony, it wasn't even the month he actually got engaged. It's the month he announced publicly that he got engaged.
And nothing else
and that's
matters
what it's
in
known
October.
for. Nothing else.
We went to dinner for Thomas's birthday, and he said, "We should just go get married right now, and today will be our wedding day.
Aw.
Nothing else."
You're trying to beat my... Oh
What?
my God. I will always beat you. You will not beat my engagement.
Yeah, forever.
And you
then
will
you're-
no longer beat my meat.
No, that's...
Wait, when was your actual
We stopped
birthday?
doing that like 10
Year
days,
one,
10 years
11
Oh
ago.
my
years
God,
ago.
it was? Why did I think it was next week?
I don't know.
Because you weren't paying attention.
Oh my God, happy belated birthday. I'm
Thank
so sorry.
you.
God, Thomas, I'm so sorry.
All good. All good.
Have y'all met?
Hi. Chris came in and he didn't even say anything. So, from our Spoopy podcast, he came in and recorded. He was like, was it
He
your
didn't wanna
birthday?
pretend.
And
He
then,
did the same thing. He was like, "I thought your birthday
No.
was next week."
He
but
didn't
it-
want
but
to have to
never said
pretend
happy
like he
birthday.
cared.
You at least said happy birthday.
My God, I feel so
So-
bad that I missed
No,
it.
no.
Jesus.
Well, I don't care what
I wished
said
you a
happy
mediocre
birthday.
birthday. And it came
it's less
true.
that, but it's like he realized it was my birthday the day before, and he's like, "Oh, I forgot," and that was it. I was like, "No, no happy belated, no nothing." No, I'm just kidding. I don't care. If I would have, I've never been that person to be like, "It's my birthday," except when I turned 30. When I turned 30, I made a big deal out of that. We went to Las Vegas. I can't believe
You
it's
made
10
a
years ago.
playlist on CDs and handed
I
them out
made
to everybody
I
in a
had
gift bag.
awesome swag
which was
bags.
nice.
I
had-
remember you
I
talking
had
about
made
this.
CDs
Yeah.
of the top 30 songs over the last 30 years. So that whatever Billboard had as the number one song that year,
Yeah.
I made a CD of that. I had liquor bottles, which I thought was a good idea, but until the liquor bottles were for great at the hotel. We had a cabana. We had an agenda. I made a nice card of like, here's what we'll be. Here's the theme night. I had early days, probably a year ago. I was like, oh, I want to do something in New Orleans.
HR
Yeah,
person.
He peaked at 30.
I thought I wanted to do the same thing. 40, like 40 came up, and I was like, oh shit. Like we booked the hotel late. It was one of those things that was just.
Oh,
like,
thank God.
I didn't. There were a lot of some people were asking. Some folks that were going to come. They were like, "Oh, what's the agenda?" I'm like, "I don't have an agenda. We're going to record a podcast.
We're gonna walk around on Bourbon Street and get drunk."
We had originally planned to do a quiz show at our friend's, but he's got what's the name of the restaurant?
Faubourg Bistro.
Faubourg Bistro, which is
In
here
New Orleans.
in New Orleans, in the French Quarter. It's a kitchen in the 700 Club. We couldn't make it work out, but nonetheless, like if you're in New Orleans,
Check
be
it
sure
out.
to stop there because they have some yummy
Get the
fried
mac and
mac
bites,
and
boo-boo.
cheese bites. They have some yummy
Dang, girl, you
cheese
hungry?
fries, like shredded pork cheese fries. It's good stuff.
They're not our
So-
sponsor.
No, but it's a good friend of ours, Maddie, and
Let's give him a plug.
love that. Love
Plug
that food
it.
there.
Just a quick plug.
But
I saw his picture on Facebook. I'd like to.
speaking of plugging, are you going to go to Rawhide, Tony, and plug it there?
I've already been there.
Oh, you
No, I'm kidding.
To our
why
listeners,
we could-
Rawhide is a sex club.
We actually got started later because Tony was late, but no, I'm
Yeah.
kidding.
Just a quick plug.
Just at
I do want to swing by there and check it out. See what's going on.
Rawhide.
Sling
I
by-
told you what
you're gonna
happened the
sling
first
by
time I
there?
went there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where I almost killed I was like, if I would have gotten arrested, I'd have fucking killed you.
But Rawhide's not like it's not like a sex club. It's a bar, but there is scandalous.
There's a
things going
section
back
where stuff goes on.
You can
Yeah.
get clubbed.
on. Yeah. But I'm excited. I love New Orleans. So I will say this about New Orleans, like, and kudos to Kendall, because when I came to New Orleans for the first time, I just turned 21 or a little after 21. I was celebrating New Year's 2000.
Did you have a playlist then?
No, I didn't. No, we had a good time.
Mixtape?
But I actually made out with a girl that and we
What?
felt her up. But
You were
anyways,
an ally.
I was an ally then. But anyways, we came and I was like, this place is cool, but it was just like, it was New Year's Eve, so it was just the streets smelled like piss, and they still do, I guess. But like, all I looked at was the rundown architecture and didn't really appreciate it. I was like, no,
The corpses in the
Ah,
streets.
How could you not?
and then I came back with Kendall, and he was like, "Oh no, you got it." And he explained everything in a different way. And he was like, "Oh, the piss smell is part of the charm of New Orleans, and the dilapidated buildings, that's part of it." And then I looked at it differently, and I've loved it.
I kind of agree.
It's called educated.
I'm educated now.
I love the city. And I remember
guys
when I
both
lived
used to live
here,
here.
one of my friends said, you always kind of have a soft spot in your heart for the city where you live when you first move out of the house. Or your first city where you're out of your hometown.
This is a good place.
Yeah, and this was my first city, and I will always have a soft spot in my
Yeah.
heart
No,
for
it's
New
a
Orleans.
great
So I
place.
moved here, to Kenner, which is a suburb, when I was 4. I moved away when I was 10, but moved back as an adult when I was 19.
Yeah.
And it just, for people that can appreciate New Orleans, it gets in your bones,
Yes.
in your DNA,
100%.
and like you will always miss it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It sticks with you. And the smell you can't ever get out of your clothes.
There's a certain charm about
Throw
it.
those away.
Because I tried explaining that to Spencer when we first came here. I thought he was going to be scared because we live in Midtown Houston, and he saw homeless people for the first time, and he like panicked.
He called the cops.
He panicked so much, like he was so uncomfortable that he tried to overcompensate. That he
wrote him a check.
He gave a handshake to a homeless guy as we were sitting outside by one of the pizza
Aw.
places.
Why? How
You
did
saw
that?
his face though, like he thought he was doing, like he felt good about it. Well, he was nervous about it, but he was trying to show me, I think, like, oh, I'm cool with this.
He was trying
And
to.
then
He was trying to impress the homeless man.
As soon as you saw him realize what he was doing, he was touching a homeless, like he was shaking hands. I think he was like, "Oh my gosh, germs." Anyways, not that,
Listen, okay.
not that,
Jesus washed people.
Yeah, but I've been
I can
flashed.
shake
yeah,
hands with that.
not that Spencer was.
Thank
he
you.
does not like homeless people. It's just like it was not in his world. So, anyways, when we came to New Orleans,
He's
I was like,
anti-homeless.
he's gonna be like overwhelmed, but
Homophobic.
he homophobic. He appreciated it. He loved it. He was like, "Oh, this is great." He actually liked the charm of the city in the sense that.
Well, that's
you
because
know,
he likes a little stank on it.
Hey, that's why he dates me.
Wait, so
I smell like old man.
my
now.
question is, when we're like super big with this podcast and we can live anywhere because people are coming to us, are we gonna live here?
I think I would.
Hell no.
No, you wouldn't. I'd have a home here.
Too hot.
Like Houston's
a winter
not.
home.
It gets very. It's an exhausting city.
Yeah.
I'm ready to go.
It-
You're like
Good job.
somewhere central.
Well,
I'm ready
it's
to go home. We
you
just
know,
got here.
we've got our friends Melissa and BJ here, and BJ was like, "This needs to be our meetup place more than once a year." Last time we were here with them was like 2 years ago, and they were like, "This needs to be our meetup place." So he's like, "Not just once a year, but once every couple of
agree.
months." So maybe that's what we'll do. We'll have a condo like in
An
timeshare
annual
sort of thing.
retreat.
Yes, I
Semi-annual retreat.
An annual
Here we
retreat.
go. An annual
Ooh, what?
retreat. All right. I mean, I'm talking fast because I love this podcast, but I'm like a little kid waiting for.
You're like
recess.
drooling to get on
I'm
Bourbon
like,
Street.
I haven't
Micro
been on
machine,
Bourbon
man.
Street yet. I want a daiquiri. I want cheese fries. I want
I
it
actually
all.
haven't been on Bourbon Street yet.
Uh-oh. Again, because you were at Rawhide. All right, so let's get
Was
started.
not.
Just kidding. All right, let's
Was
get
it the other-
started.
The classy gay bar.
Before we get started, though, hey, did you know the unemployment rate is below 4%? It actually was announced this week.
Isn't it like a 70-year low?
3.5% in the U.S.? So if you're trying to hire someone,
Thank you, President Trump.
yeah,
I might be
that's,
voting
that's why we're here.
Republican.
We're here for the Mike Pence is in town, so that's why we're really in town to go cheer on.
He's
Mike.
been blowing up my grinder all afternoon. Thank you. He and his staffers. Like,
That, you saw him at Rawhide.
I wouldn't doubt we see him arrive.
There we go. We'll see him.
Anyways.
Poor economy works. If you're trying to hire someone like Tony is tonight, then you probably already know that because you are having trouble finding. Wait, let's try that again. If you're trying to hire someone, then you probably already know that the unemployment rate is impacting your ability to hire in terms of trying to find quality candidates. Economy Works is here to help. Don't have time, energy, or the resources to hire? Economy Works is ready to help you write job descriptions, find candidates, review resumes, and phone screen candidates. Let the Economy Works Talent Network help you do more with less. Economy Works. When we work, the economy works. Find out more at economyworks.com. The cool thing, just a quick plug on Economy Works on a personal day. I have my mom doing a project with Economy
That's
Works.
awesome.
Yeah, she's helping do a recruiting search, so it's really cool. So never in my wildest dreams that I think I would get to work with my mom on a professional level, and so she and I are getting to do that. So that's fun.
awesome.
So Economy Works. Woohoo! All right, who's going first? Oh, you can hear all the charm of New Orleans, the sounds in the background.
Yes.
We said I was going first, huh? All right, so what am I talking about? I am talking about, speaking of my birthday, 1979. The year is 1979. What's going on in the year? Picture it, as Sophia would say.
Picture
from The
it.
Golden Girls. Picture
U.S.
it.
1979.
Any thoughts? Besides me and Tony being born this year, 40 years ago?
Especially since you just mentioned your topic 2 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Ugh, I
Wow.
can't remember.
It's like, oh. Well, there was lots going on. So 1979, if you think about what was going on from an LGBT standpoint, it was still illegal to be gay, right? You still had these, not only did you have the sodomy laws that were still in place, like there were laws that were saying if you were gay or were a cross-dresser,
Right,
you could
yeah.
be arrested. Which is crazy. So a transgender person
For
could
being
live the way
fierce.
the way they couldn't live them true selves, and a gay person would go to jail for having sex with their
For
partner.
sex.
Yeah,
Or they would go for sex.
or they would go for what? That's the only way you could get it legally, I guess. But anyway, that's kind of what was going on. You had Anita Bryant. You guys know Anita Bryant?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Stay tuned for that topic.
Yeah, pie in the face, Anita Bryant, spewing off all
Bitch.
sorts of crazy stuff. Spencer saw a video of her getting a pie in the face. He was loving it. But she
We'll
was
cover that in the future.
Yeah, she was advocating for all sorts of anti-LGBT legislation. 79 is the year after Harvey Milk was assassinated, and then you were 10 years away from the Stonewall riots that happened back in 1969. So all these things are happening in LGBT culture. The LGBT community has been active in supporting the other civil rights movements. So they were helping Martin Luther King and company in terms of the
He
March
was
on
dead.
Washington. They did. Well, I mean, not in 79, but prior. I mean, they're still advocating
He
for,
done been
for,
dead.
Yeah.
minorities' rights. They're supporting women in their right, in their quest for equality. And all these sorts of things are like inspiring or starting to make a movement. And while Harvey Milk, when he was still alive, and we talked about this before, he was really advocating for people to be visibly out, so much so that he outed
Oliver Sipple, yeah.
Oliver Sipple, because he's like, the purpose of just organizing is not
Yeah.
good unless you're actively visible. Like, you can organize all you want, but if people don't see how you're living, how being LGBT, you're just normal, and how their lives are impacting people and the laws that are against LGBT people are harming the LGBT people. He was like, you got to be visible. And so he was saying, if you're going to organize, that's one thing, but he was really starting to coalesce around this idea of, let's take that inspiration that MLK had with that big march in Washington, D.C., and let's do something similar. Let's bring LGBT people from across the United States together and really show the world, not just the country, but the world, the power that this community really has. As diverse as we are, we have strength in that diversity. And so after Harvey Milk was assassinated, you had two people, Steve Alt and Joyce Hunter, who were from New York City, activists in New York City, really start to push this idea into reality. So what happened in 1979, October 14th, 1979, you had this National March on Washington for gay and lesbian rights. And they started out with some objectives. They had 4 objectives. One was to repeal all anti-lesbian and gay rules gay legislation out there, pass a comprehensive lesbian and gay rights bill in Congress, have President Carter at the time issue a presidential executive order banning discrimination based on sexual orientation in the federal government, so this way military folks could be out, and then also that any contractors that were working with the government, that they could be gay as they were working. They also had an objective of ending discrimination in lesbian mother and gay father custody cases. So when LGBT people were divorcing their opposite sex partner, oftentimes in those divorce cases, the custody would go to the straight parent, and so the LGBT people would lose kind of their rights to their.
The gays really dodged a bullet having to take those kids in.
Right, just as you were talking about naming your unborn child.
Oh, I want to have a kid just to name them their middle name Tiger.
Tiger, you're such a hippie.
Muskrat.
And they also,
muskrat.
one of their other objectives was to protect lesbian and gay youth from any laws which are used to discriminate against, oppress, or harass them in their homes, schools, jobs, and social environments. So not only were they trying to take active legislation off the books, but they were trying to combat the Anita Bryants of the world, who were like trying to not just leverage the current laws that were in place to discriminate against LGBT, but they were saying we can't do any more, and we really got to protect children so that they have a safe environment. This is really, as this came together, it was really, again, a testament in terms of how the LGBT community was starting to gain its identity and say, hey, we're more than just people. We are a political force that needs to be recognized. And so on October the 14th, which was a Sunday, they came together and they marched in Washington, D.C. And the nice thing of what came to I think what folks were realizing is that the thing about the LGBT community was it included all races. So it wasn't just a black or Hispanic thing, or it included all genders, right? It wasn't just
gays,
but it was like, gender. There was lots of women's rights, but this aspect of this march, this movement really included men and women and put them on an equal playing field. It also brought into the forefront disabled folks, and so they were they were part of this movement as well. And we had people, regardless of where they were on the economic spectrum, they all joined together, right?
Nice,
so there was a lot of parity in terms of some of the things that normally distance people. Because again of the economic situation or their gender or race, and it really brought everyone together around this one cause. And so again on this Sunday they started their march on 4th Street near the Capitol on Independence and Constitution Avenue. They moved up Pennsylvania Avenue. They marched around the White House and then ended near the reflection pool near the Washington Monument. So
but to clarify, the disabled people probably weren't marching that were joining in.
No.
No? Okay.
They were marching.
Rolling for justice? Okay.
No. You can't. No.
Well, those Proud Marys kept rolling.
What else you got?
Mm-mm.
No, but
if I ever do have a wheelchair, I want a bumper sticker that says Hot Wheels. Or Hell on Wheels. That's what it was.
One of the things they were talking about in terms of disabled folks, they were talking about deaf people who were signing "I love you" as they were marching. So that was really powerful and unique testament of people from across the community.
Yep.
They ended, like I said, near the reflection pool. So I guess right around where the World War II Museum, if you've been to DC, probably right around there. And they ended and had a rally around 4:00. Now, the estimates in terms of how many people showed up vary. Originally, the officials who keep track of this, so the DC, I think, police or whoever.
The ones that counted the people at Trump's inauguration.
Right, those folks. Well, they originally said it was 75,000 people that showed up, and then they revised that to say, it was more like between 20 and 50. The organizers say there were 100,000 people that attended the.
There were
march.
200 really big people.
They're just really. Not the
So
gays.
it skewed the results.
And so, yes, so you had a ton of people out there, and you had tears of joy. You had what's Ben doing?
Lift it all the way up.
Filling a Mission Impossible.
He's talking
Sorry.
about my skirt.
Ben's coming in the room, and he's squeezing
Climbing
in
through the window
versus-
drunk on Bourbon Street.
versus just opening the door.
Ben, my fiance.
Ben is like wastoid all the time. It's
Okay,
crazy.
We're so drunk.
Yeah, so there was tears of joy. It was the first time you brought. I mean, there were local marches in across the U.S., but there had never been this many LGBT folks that came together, and it was a time that really kind of solidified the community as, like I said, a viable voting bloc, that a political force that really needs to be dealt with, or not dealt with, but really heard.
Heard, yeah.
Of course,
Brought to heel.
there was some controversy. Speaking of brought to heel, there was a coalition of ministers that was holding a similar event,
yeah.
led by
Catholic.
Jerry Falwell, and they had a national day of prayer on homosexuality
At the same time, like near
Right,
the, yeah.
Well, that really worked, didn't
near
it?
Capitol Hill. Well, I mean, speaking of did it work, like, you talk about the objectives that were, why they had this. I mean, was this event a success? I mean, they didn't actually achieve any of those objectives. I mean, we really are still, not until 2015.
Right.
We'll go back to 2009, I guess, 2011 rather, when Don't Ask, Don't Tell was finally repealed and people could serve
And
openly.
we started telling everyone we know.
They could serve openly in the military, so it took a long time for that. And we didn't have marriage equality until 2015.
But so even though, like, it maybe didn't have any direct consequences, if it was that big of a march, you never know if there were some people that thought, wow, okay, if they're marching on Washington, should I think about this? You never know how, like, what impact it has. So even though it's not like, because they did this, a law changed, but I feel if it's not for all of these little things, maybe we wouldn't be where we are today.
Right, which that is the point of the organizers. I mean, they're saying, we didn't have any of that accomplished, but we brought 100,000 people together, and as Harvey Milk was noting, they were visibly out, right? There was, and so it was a signal to,
and it shows like sheer numbers, and like I'm sure it was televised, and when you see like all races, people with disabilities, people of various economic classes.
Can you imagine
like
if there were
everybody's-
Grindr during that march?
well,
oh my
so
God.
to that point, I
2 feet, 3 feet,
and I
4
mentioned
feet.
this to I mentioned this to Spencer
Negative
when I was
6 inches.
when I was doing research. So maybe a bit controversial, but you guys tell me. So 79, this was October 79 that
Right.
happens, and then like a year later, in 1980, 1981, start to have the AIDS crisis. I was just wondering, like, was the first time I thought, was that like ground zero for how this?
You never
like,
know.
I don't know, but I mean, just to that point, I was like, well, there was a lot of
No,
sex
that was not.
happening around.
Oh, you mean how it propagated?
Yeah.
Because the first, we should do this as a topic. The first verified AIDS case was like a black guy in the early 60s, I think. But it's not reported. We act like
So why did it
patient
take
zero
so
was
long
a
to
white.
spread?
Huh?
One thing I wonder too, like, because now you hear like, well, some people they get HIV and they have it for like 10 years before they have like symptoms or whatever, and it's like, so was it really propagated like in the late 60s, early 70s, but nobody really started having symptoms until the 80s, and then it was like,
Well, what if the original guy wasn't having sex? What if he died too soon?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but I was just
Yeah.
like, it was a, and I
To
don't
be
know,
continued.
I
We'll
don't
talk
wanna
about
say
that.
anything
Yeah.
controversial. Like, I'm not trying to, but I was just like, there was
Leave
a
it
lot
to
of
me.
sex happening, right?
Oh,
I mean,
of course.
I
That's not controversial?
I remember living in D.C. Like the
That's a
RNC
celebration.
It wasn't the
Like,
RNC.
I remember living in DC 30 years later.
No,
Shit.
no, but like it was always the
The
joke.
march in 2009?
No, not. Well, I'll get to that. But like in DC, would they have the PAC? What is it? Christian Coalition? What is it? The CPAC. There's always the running joke in DC. It was like, oh, and at the time it was before Grindr was big. Craigslist. There were a ton of ads with like all these participants just trying to find,
Love, just trying to find true
just
love.
trying to love. They were trying to get some D. But anyways, that. I think I said, I was just a thought that popped on my head because you had 100,000 gays that were coming together. Gays
Yeah.
and
So
lesbians.
you're
I agree.
homophobic. And
No, but I don't like. I was just like,
Anti-gay.
like how did that spread so quickly? But anyways, to your
Self-loathing,
point,
homosexual.
Tony, the organizers would define the event as a success because they had so many people again that were visibly out.
Why did you direct that to Tony only?
Well, because
yeah.
that's what he said. He was
Oh, I
like,
thought-
But I do. So, I mean, we talked about like Paul Broussard's, the march in Houston or the protest in Houston when Paul Broussard was murdered. And, a lot of people. So for the national march, that may have been the first time a lot of people felt comfortably being publicly in a protest.
Yep.
Because we talked about some people were like very closeted. And when Paul Broussard was murdered, they're like, I don't care. I'm not going to lose
Yep.
my life walking to my car from a bar.
Right.
I don't care if I lose my job or my family finds out. Boom.
Well, and that's what really the organizers were saying. And,
But I don't
and the
think
that
society was ready to care that much.
But the people that were there, they found strength in each other. They said, "Oh wow!" And I was reading one quote. They're saying like people from Montana had never seen that many gay people in
Yeah.
their life, right? And they used Montana as an example. It's like, oh, Tony. But it was just one of those things that like. So you saw people that were like you, and one of the women who was speaking, she was like, 30 years ago, prior to 79, she was like, I thought I was the only gay person that ever existed. And she's like, now you're at this march and you see all these people that are like you. So it's just like,
Yeah, because I would say, I mean, you said, well, was society really ready for like the change or whatever?
to care about Paul Broussard's
Yeah.
murder, I think the gays cared.
But the thing is, that's a big thing about, growing up like in a remote area. We talked about this with the It Gets Better. Sometimes just knowing that other people went through this is a big relief.
Right.
And so even though maybe it didn't change society or society wasn't ready, it's like if a Joe Schmo shows up to the rally and they're like, oh my God, there's other people like me. Thank God I'm not alone.
yeah, it wasn't. I think it was a building point for the LGBT community,
Yep.
not so much for the allies. While allies were at the march, it was really about gay people looking at other gay people. That 100,000 people saying, "Oh, there's other people like me," and it wasn't only
In
that,
every aspect of life. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
It was for the people that weren't there as well, saying, "Wow, there are 100,000 people
Exactly,
that went
yeah,
to
yeah.
this." From all 50 states. The way they did the march, it was interesting. They had the disabled people go first, but then after that, they had the people who came the furthest, and so you had people from Hawaii and Alaska,
Oh, okay,
all
yeah.
50 states, and that's how the march proceeded. So, but yeah, so they say it was a success because they not only showed that many people could show up and that there were that many gay people, but it was this political force to say, we are coming together, we are organizing, and
Yep.
we have common interests. We may be diverse. We may be rich and poor, black or white, male and female, but we've got
And
a
if
voice.
nothing else, it shows sheer number.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so they said it's a success. They had subsequent marches. They had one in 1987. I mean, you think about what's happened from 79 to 87. You had the AIDS crisis. But that 79 march just demonstrated a lot of visibility because when they had it in 87, you had the AIDS crisis. So the AIDS quilt came out. That's when that debuted. But you also had people like prominent people showing up to speak at the event. So you had politicians. Barney Frank was out by that point, so he was there.
Yep.
You had civil rights
What
leaders. 87. You had Jesse Jackson, who was there. Jesse Jackson was running for president in 1988. Labor leaders, Cesar Chavez was there. So all these folks were at the 87 event. And then they had another one.
So it happened every year until...
No. They had one in 87. Then they had another one
same
in
time frame?
in October 1987 they had it. And then in 1993 they had one. They believe the organizers say there were 1 million people that showed up
In the 93 one?
In the 1993 one. That one was in
But
April.
that was $1 million in $1987.
Right.
87 people.
They had another.
It was worth a lot more.
Another march that they called the Millennium March in 2000. In 2009, Kendall, you remember this one? They had the Equality March.
Yep.
I was there. I was there on TV.
Yeah.
You were on TV there?
Yeah, my big head was on the
Daily Show.
Jon Stewart, The Daily Show.
It wasn't like
With
they
Lady
did a pan
Gaga.
over, but you could see him. He was like, "That was me."
I was shining in the audience.
It was a big deal. Lady Gaga was there.
Yeah.
And then they had
I
another.
put it on my
march.
resume.
I remember the 2009 one. A lot of my friends from Houston went.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Barney Frank spoke, I wouldn't say out against that, but at the time he was like, have all the marches you want. It's not going to do anything. It takes people in power and legislation doing things, getting things done. And he got a lot of backlash because it's like, no, this does help for one. And if anything, it's unifying us. It's putting our message out there.
Yeah,
but it was that whole like outside versus inside.
Yeah, because we've had that debate before,
argument.
and I feel like you need both.
Yeah.
Like you
Why
can't
can't there
have
be
marches
both?
with nobody inside politics, but if you have a bunch of people
And the marches tell people in power too.
Yeah, I mean, it just shows, like, we have numbers, this is what we want. Yeah, I agree.
They had another one in 2017, but I think those marches are powerful. Like, I mean, sometimes I roll my eyes. I'm like, because again, what is a march going to do? But it shows the people that are.
Why didn't you go to the march with me in 2009?
I was out of town. I met you afterwards.
You
for the
got
after
out.
party.
You flew out of town
Yeah.
to a homophobe.
But
Why did New Orleans bring out the homophobe in you?
this is true. I don't know, but
Has a way of doing that.
it was what the marches do, and I saw this in D.C. Like when we went to a couple of them. We went to not to attend as a participant, but
We
I
were
remember going to
watchers.
a Tea Party rally in 2009. Like it was just I loved living in D.C. because you got to see that all the time. Like people passionate about a cause and really rallying behind that. The Tea Party rallies were insane, but there was one that Jon Stewart had like in.
It was like the
2012.
march. It was the anti-Tea Party march, basically.
Yeah.
And it was the biggest march in DC history. I wouldn't say march, protest, gathering in history.
Jon Stewart, Stephen Colbert, they came together. It was but just being around that environment where everyone's passionate, people are coming from across the globe and connecting with one another. I could see how powerful that march was. And obviously you've seen through subsequent marches that the LGBT community had, going all the way back to 2017, that there's really something powerful about doing it. I mean, now the question is, well, why do you continue to march? And there's a lot of things that the LGBT community still is fighting
It's
for.
good for weight loss.
Well, that too. But equality, I mean, we still can get fired for being gay. Trans people are getting murdered regularly.
Right, yeah.
And so there are still things in which we need to continue to march for. So, I mean, just
People on
because
Grindr are still putting no fats and no femmes.
this is true.
Yeah.
Just because...
And I feel personally
Eliminates
attacked by
me,
that.
shit.
Nice. Just because we have marriage equality and we can serve out in the military, and we don't have the fear of AIDS being an imminent death threat, like there's still things that we need to continue to rally and fight for. And I think that's again, I'd be interested to see kind of how March is organized in the future.
I mean, not only like, things we officially have to fight for, but I mean, today I flew here. So,
she got
she
money.
had to brag about it. Flew.
no, but
You
on
can
my
do a
flight,
4-hour
like,
car ride.
we land and everyone's like standing up waiting to get out. And this guy about 4 rows ahead of me, he was talking to like the 2 people in his seat. And he's like, yeah, those 2 guys up in first class. He goes, I could tell they were looking at me. He goes, I could tell him and his boyfriend were looking at me like, But he goes, I was like, I ain't into all that, but you give me your seat. I was like,
Was it Mike Pence? He arrived in town for this.
probably Mike Pence's staffer. But he was like, he's like, I could tell him and his boyfriend were looking at me. I'm like, whatever. They were not. He wasn't cute. They were
But
looking at him.
let's be honest, they probably were.
You think it was Mike Pence's staff?
Oh, he was not cute. They were not looking at
Are
him.
you talking about Mike Pence's staff? Like his
Staph
in his
infection?
pants? Oh, he probably has a staph.
His rod.
infection. Oh, gross. All right. Well, that's all I got. I think it was a big event. It was again first time
79.
you have these folks organize, our community organize, and really starts a voice that we've got things we want to say and rights that need to be protected. And
But also think of the pants in 1979 and how hard it would be to march in those. First of all, the chafing. Okay.
polyester.
And everything's thick.
It's very thick
It was
around
October,
the thigh.
though. That's
It's
the
very
timing
tight
of it.
around the thighs.
Yeah, but you're in October in DC. You can march.
Dick
so-
prints everywhere. Penis
This was
prints.
before
I'm sorry, mother.
before global warming became the issue that it is. Like it was actually felt like fall in October.
So
back
their
in
balls
1979.
didn't quite have the stench and aroma
No.
that they would have in 2019.
No, but you could probably see some good VPL.
Okay, well then how was their history if their balls didn't
VPL.
stink?
Visible penis line.
Oh.
Yeah, so that was good.
Well,
See,
that
learning-
VPL.
The reason I love this podcast, I learn something new every day.
You should always be looking out for
VPL needs its own segment. Well, VPL sounds divine. And
Divine.
speaking of divine,
Yep, give
how's
us-
that for a segue? I was surprised before this that y'all had never heard of divine.
I've heard of Divine, but I couldn't tell
I'd
you
never even heard of
anything.
Divine.
Divine is this self-admitted, because this is the look she was going for, very trashy looking drag queen from Baltimore
Oh, thank you.
that did a lot of cult classic underground artsy films by John Waters. Have y'all heard of John Waters?
Nope.
Please.
No.
Oh God, John Waters is an amazing director with a hilarious sense of humor. And starting in the 60s and 70s, we'll have to do a
You got some
topic on
movies
him.
that come out?
Well, he's Hairspray is his biggest
okay.
one.
Oh, okay,
He's the
nice.
guy
Yeah,
that
yeah.
did Hairspray,
Yeah.
and he did a lot of mostly cult classic, but Hairspray's his biggest one, original one with Ricky Lake. And we'll get into that, Zwalls, but that'll be its own topic one day. But Divine was his muse, and he considered John Waters is the broke down, busted trailer park version of Andy Warhol, where Andy Warhol had a lot of muses that he kind of used and abused and kind of got rid of them after that.
Oh yeah.
And John
Very
Waters
much.
always said he's not I'm trashy. Look, my thing is filth all the way. And in most of his movies, Divine, who we'll talk about, was there in almost every single one and became the star of his movies. And that was starting in the 70s. So he was born Harris Glenn Milstead, October 19th, 1945. And he was famous for being actor, singer, and drag queen. And to me, he's the pre-RuPaul. We had a few other ones, we've talked about Milton Berle before,
Yep.
a long time ago. And he was more like a man in a dress. Divine was to me, she's even ahead of her time now because she had a distinct look, which was trash. It was these huge, sharp eyebrows that went up 3 inches, and this trashy,
Yeah.
blown out wig. And they're from Baltimore, this entire group of people's from Baltimore, which is...
And Baltimore used to be really rough. It's kind of like New Orleans, right?
It reminds me
crime
so
rate.
much
Yeah.
of New Orleans. The size of the city,
'Cause I
there's a
think
lot of decaying
New Orleans and
history.
Baltimore for years had the highest murder rate. Yeah.
When I was living here as a child, we were at least we're not Baltimore, because they would always be. We were always number 2 for murder rate, and then
Okay,
we
and they were
overtook
one.
them, and we were maybe Baltimore will beat us soon, hopefully. But it also has that kind of artsy fringe element that New Orleans does. And even the accent's kind of similar. Well, it's a crazy little accent. But he was born Harris Glenn Milstead in Baltimore to a conservative Baptist family, but he was an only child, and they gave him, he admitted, a spoiled brat. They gave him whatever he wanted. He was overweight. He had an eating weight problem his entire life because he was grown up his parents never told him no to anything. So he was a big old drag queen. And then he became a hairdresser, and that's when he started doing drag. He would use his parents' credit card to pay for these big elaborate parties that they never even knew about.
What did his parents
Were
do
they
that
just
could do
rich
that?
and they didn't notice it was?
And they were middle
ringing up a
class.
bill?
I don't know. I couldn't figure out what his parents did.
Well, how
But
did
they
not
went
notice
broke
he was
paying
ringing up
for
a big
everything.
bill?
They didn't care.
Oh, okay.
He was that spoiled. And his mom regretted it later in life. But he would throw these huge parties where he would try out his drag. And he would be Elizabeth Taylor, but he would be a busted Andy Warhol version of Elizabeth Taylor. A big girl version. Over the top. And he was a hairdresser,
Yes.
so he would toy with his own hair and makeup. And during that time when he was experimenting, he met John Waters. And John Waters fell in love with him, and he became his muse. And he actually gave him the name Divine. He said, "You're divine, and your tagline is the most beautiful woman in the world, almost." Oh God!
Wow.
Have y'all heard of him now? Anybody?
I think
I have
Divine.
not actually.
Divine sounds divine, if you ask me.
So he started doing. John Waters was the director, but he would do these cult classics. This is obviously before internet, anything like that. So he would sell his movies to art houses, and you kind of had to be in the know, artsy, to know about these movies.
Yeah.
But in the 1970, he did a film, and they had done a few, and they were kind of
Behind the Green Door. No, I'm kidding.
No, that's a different one. He did a movie called Multiple Maniacs, where
Sounds like this podcast.
Divine played Lady Divine, and she had lots of controversial scenes, and this became a big deal on the underground because of the things she did in the movie, and she was the breakout star. Every movie she did, she was kind of like, Divine is the breakout star, like really the only thing good about the movie. But she had a few controversial scenes in the movie, like she was masturbating with the rosary while sitting inside a church.
Oh.
And this was kind of
Have either of y'all done that?
Yes.
I mean,
I'm Catholic.
Not today, but
this is and
It's
these
New
were
Orleans.
mainstream movies. They weren't like
No, there
they
were
kinda
artsy movies
okay.
that became very popular with people that went to see
Oh, okay, yeah. So kind of
art
indie,
films at
yeah,
these little
indie
art
films.
houses.
So she masturbate. Like, did they show her actually, or was just the image of her?
It was implied. It was obviously what she was
Well,
doing.
no, I say that because in the 70s they were like they would have more porn. Like,
Well, she was playing a woman, so she couldn't put the rosary in her vagina.
Oh, she could have. They have beads.
Anal beads, but yeah.
And then in the movie, she killed her boyfriend and eats his heart. But in the movie, she ate a heart, but it was a pig's heart that had been rotten,
Wow.
and spoiled, and sitting on a table outside all day in Baltimore summer.
Wow.
Maybe is that what Gaga named her song "Monster" after? Because she keeps
Probably.
saying, he ate my.
She'll be on
heart.
our. She'll be a guest
ate
eventually.
my heart.
We'll ask
Lady
her.
Gaga. Yeah.
And then Divine also in the movie gets raped by a giant lobster called Lobstera. And it drives her mad, and she goes on a killing spree.
I'm trying to like picture that. Like, how does that scene work? We have a lobster raping a woman.
A man in a lobster suit.
Oh,
But these
yes.
videos were so like out there because John Waters and Divine, because they were kind of like partners in this. They would
that's
work
fun.
hand in
And
hand
this was
together.
what, 70s?
Yes, that was the 70s. It was very
So you got to picture
experimental.
the quality wasn't as good as it is now. So I mean, man in a lobster suit, you
Like,
know.
I love that though. Like when these directors and actors come together. I was listening to an interview with Paul Feig, and he was like, "Oh, Melissa McCarthy is his muse," and you see that with Scorsese and Leo DiCaprio. Like you get some when they work together on on a repeated basis. You get to see some good.
Yeah, 'cause I
art.
feel
Well,
like
watch
they-
Ryan Murphy. He uses this. Jessica Lange is his Divine.
Because I feel they like
Washington, the politician.
haven't watched
they
it yet.
develop over like the character and the whoever producer or whatever, they develop over time, right? Like and
Well,
so
it's
they
not even. It's in different stories too, but you start to get the director and the actor start to get a comfort level that they didn't have previously, and
Yep.
so that works really nicely together. Like that's where.
Well, and they don't have to explain. They can just like, remember that time when so-and-so movie, and they'll be like,
Yeah.
they can
Yeah,
almost
yeah.
speak for each other.
The actors get to really be.
you
comfortable.
really get to know each other, and you kind of
and the directors know how they can challenge the actors in
Yeah.
in a really artistic way. So that's cool.
So in that movie, he hadn't developed quite his over-the-top trashy style. But then
Who,
they
Divine
live
or
in
John
Divine,
Waters?
and they lived in Baltimore at the time, so they would go to D.C. to these black ball culture events.
Oh, what was that?
Ball culture. I can't say ball
It's because
culture.
Martha's around. Like
I can't say ball culture.
So Martha's
Okay,
listening on the outside, but last time you had trouble with bull, it was
listening
Martha
in.
here, and you could not. It took you like 10 tries to say
well, I did better that time.
You were
ball
talking about
culture.
Paris-
Ball culture, people.
Paris is burning, which is surprising that you can't say balls since you love to have them in your mouth so much.
Mhm.
Da-da-da-da.
Well, yours turned me off from even saying the word. That one time
Thank
I saw
God you
him
had
in our
Ben
10-year
to
marriage.
redeem.
None of my 40, they just
So
disappeared.
they started
dust.
going to these events in DC, and he was like, "Oh my God, you have to do it." They were inspired. John Walsh was like, "You have to go over the top." So that's when he developed his like really arched eyebrows and got a wig maker to do like these really teased out wigs. And then that's when he did one of his most famous movies called Pink Flamingos. And by the way, Pink Flamingos is a Baltimore thing. Did you know that?
No.
You know that, right?
Wait,
Okay, so Baltimore considers himself like such a cheap, quirky city that like Pink Flamingo
Wait, quirky?
lawn ornaments is a thing, to where it just became like a tacky
because the Pink
Baltimore
Flamingo
thing.
lawn-
Yeah, like
Really?
like it's considered tacky, like in the front yard of a trailer or something.
yeah.
So the movie
Wait,
was
wait,
called
wait.
Pink Flamingos.
Pink. Where do pink flamingos? Where do they?
Like Florida?
Not in Houston.
No.
The lawn
Sounds really-
ornaments.
I know the lawn ornaments.
You're
but
asking if we got flamingos in Houston?
I thought I saw some flying the other day. That's why I
Oh
was
my
like,
god.
Oh, I don't think naturally. No.
Definitely at the zoo though.
That's
Oh,
Africa.
yeah.
Africa.
But I mean, not naturally.
Anyways, you know
Those
what?
were eye boogers.
Can I just note something? Kendall is getting really agitated that I am
I'm trying to get on Bourbon Street, boo.
Girl, I was trying to do the same thing, and you were like, you talking about insulting disabled people, and like I'm like,
Well, that really took up a lot
Anyways.
of time. I won't say the word disabled anymore.
stop it.
So they
I
made
feel sorry for Tony. We're gonna be looking.
they
at you
made
like,
Pink
"Get this thing off your
Flamingos,
chest."
and where Waters said the movie was, quote, an exercise in poor taste. And Divine played Babs Johnson, who claimed she was, quote, the filthiest person alive. So her whole persona was like trash, trash, trash. I feel like she took my look. Like she
Well-
invented my look, really.
She did.
Yeah. Can y'all hear Bourbon Street on the in
Yes.
the background?
Love it.
I hear someone being murdered out
that's
there.
why we're recording here. We would hear the lives.
I know.
The
So in the movie,
spirit of
his
New Orleans.
movies were so trashy that they had to pick up, in one part of the movie, they picked up a box full of cat poop, but they didn't have a cat to put the poop in the box. So Divine, the night before, pooped in the box and left it out all night.
Ooh, that's
What?
So the other
Oh my
actress
God.
that picked it up, she was actually picking up Divine's poop.
So Divine was just like, I'm who I am. I'll leave it all out
oh, she
there.
didn't care at all.
Yeah. Fuck.
Why couldn't they do like? I mean, I know.
But you know how much that her crap is worth now? Like, you should
That's
put
true.
that, at least frame it.
Wow.
I'm
Is it
surprised
possible
you
to
haven't
frame
put that
poop?
in like Ben's y'all's new house. Not y'all's new, but
Well, I'll just
your
set
house.
up on my own.
Hmm.
But
Could
the
look
end
for
of the
that on the-
movie, which Divine became known for years, is that she had to, in the script, Divine had to eat dog poop. So she said that I followed that damn dog around for 3 hours, just zooming in on its asshole, waiting for it to shit.
Oh my God.
And sure enough, the dog craps. And in the movie,
She had to eat
she
fresh?
picks up. Yes, it's not fake. It's not like chocolate.
Okay,
It's
I cannot
nothing.
even. What?
that's gross because
And-
Carter will poop sometimes, and that stuff is just. Nasty.
All right.
It smells
And then
gross.
so Divine picked it up.
Anyways.
Divine picked it up and ate it, and it became kind of what she was known for her entire career.
Really?
She said people would send her real dog crap, people would send her plastic dog crap, and they assumed she was into it. And she would go on interviews, because she eventually did interviews with like David Letterman and Merv Griffin, all the late night shows, and she'd be like, trust me, people, I don't eat crap of any kind.
Why would she do that though? I mean, I get like
She
wanna
just
be-
she did it for the art.
Right. I get like
For the
Shia
shart.
LaBeouf. Shia LaBeouf.
Boof.
LaBeouf.
Boof is something else.
Oh,
That's when you shove
Shia-
alcohol up your
that-
butt.
That's what Tony's gonna do at Rawhide later. But
Somebody's
he
gonna do
did
it for
heroin. I thought for
Tony?
No, Shia LaBeouf. Like I get like he did heroin. I thought I read he did heroin to like play the part of a drug addict. But like at some point, like eating dog shit, that seems a bit much to get
You
into
think?
the role.
Oh, see, I disagree.
You would do it.
No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Gross.
I'm like, you won't even show up
So
on
this
time
was
for the podcast, but you'll eat dog
me.
shit. I'm just kidding.
I'm here before you are. I let you in.
This is true.
So this was kind of like the peak of her developed trashy, slutty look, and she's becoming more and more known. You know, like even Lady Gaga was, quote, underground for a while.
Yeah.
But she had that label for so long. It's kind of like, child, we all know what Lady Gaga is. But she came up in the underground culture, so people knew her as that.
Yeah.
Divine's becoming more mainstream. But once he ate that boo-boo, honey,
Wow.
yeah, things started rolling.
There's
His
a-
career really took off, I should say.
Oh, did it really
Yeah.
start going off? Or?
It became notorious.
Oh, but in a good way?
If you don't mind being known by that, you know, why don't you
Hey.
do it and see how this podcast really takes
hey,
off in the world?
everybody. Our next guest is known for eating shit.
So she
But,
became.
hey, you're gay. You eat the poo-poo,
This
don't
was
you?
like her big mainstream moment, and then it led to in 1988. So this was around 1985. She's mainstream-ish, you know, on that verge. And then in 1988, and she was like, also at the time, she's like, I'm sick of being this nasty, trashy woman. Can I have some more Melrose? Because she Melrose.
Male.
That means something
Yeah.
different for me. Oh my god,
Yeah.
I'm trying to lose weight, y'all, for my wedding. But anyway,
We thought it
she
was for
wanted
the
more
podcast,
male
but-
roles, ROLES. And she's like, I'm sick of playing the dog shit eating, you know, take a dump in
Yeah.
a box girl that, you know, lives next door,
Right.
that we all have known in our lives.
Why'd you look
And
at me
that's
when
when
you
in
said that?
1988 she
We
does.
have one on the podcast.
She's Hairspray. Have y'all seen Hairspray, either the new one or the old one?
I saw the John Travolta one.
the old one.
Okay, well, the John Travolta one, she's the John Travolta character.
Oh,
Edna
get out.
Turnblad which is the main girl.
So when was that? 80s that she did that?
This was 88.
Okay.
And this was the role. She played Ricky Lake's mom.
Yeah. Oh my God! No, I did see
Lake
that. Yeah, I did see
originated
that.
role.
Yeah.
So
She
she
was a
plays
bigger
the
girl,
mom,
yeah.
and she was once again the breakout role, quote unquote. And she also played the racist station owner. So she was excited because she was like, "Oh, I get a male
Oh, she
part."
was both. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
She still only got paid one salary, huh?
Probably.
You know how women get paid
That's what I'm saying.
75% or whatever, something. I don't know. I wasn't really paying. Was that math?
Stop.
But so okay, Hairspray really was John Waters has had the only reason people know John Waters' name is because he directed Hairspray, and that was like his big classic film. So after Hairspray, when he played Edna Turnblad, he was mainstream now, you know.
But
and
wait.
it was scandalous also in '88, a man playing a woman. Like it wasn't supposed to be a
But
drag
I thought
queen.
he was
literally playing a woman.
You know, I saw that movie years ago, and I didn't remember it until you had mentioned. But I was like, God, all I remember is her. I don't remember much. Sorry, go ahead.
She was good. She's got a charismatic.
But
It helps because you can't smell her breath.
And she was
Through the
really
TV.
like that character too.
yeah, well, I remember her being, though, I'm like, that's a man. I remember as a kid watching it, and I was like, this is odd. Like, should I be watching this? Because it just seemed very
Is she supposed to be a man? Do
Yeah.
we?
Yeah.
Are we supposed to think she's
But
a man?
when you say
which
she-
made it even more interesting.
When you say Divine was mainstream, was it mainstream like, because I would say RuPaul now is mainstream. Like,
People
as at
knew
the table,
her. She was
but like
in
the Truman Capote we talked about a couple weeks ago, like was part of it, but didn't have a seat at the table.
Especially when Hairspray came out, because Hairspray was a hit. She was written up. She was going on all these late night talk shows. She was, the underground it girl kind of. You know, there are different degrees of famous.
But there's
People-
an accessory.
People
and-
magazine called her Miss Piggy for the blissfully depraved.
Ah.
Like she was
Sounds
kind of known as being the raunchy,
You
kind
know,
of like
sometimes
I am. You know,
sometimes I think about like people like that are. So, for example, Dorothy on Golden Girls, like
oh
no, but she was-
Jeez, it always comes back
No,
to
but-
Golden Girls.
you know,
She
she
ate
was
shit
very
too.
she was very manly and stuff like that, and they would make fun of her for being manly on the show. And I thought, God, does some of that kind of hit close to home because that is her persona on the show, but also her like in real life, like she is very tall and manly, and she has a deep voice, and so it's like, does some of that comedy hit close to home? You know, and so for like her, this. Yeah, you're the shit eating, but then does at some point she feel bad about herself, like God, I'm the shit eating, you know, whatever.
Well, at the time she was going through, it's what you hear a lot with famous people, like your highest career moment can be your lowest
Yeah, time in
personal
life.
moment.
Yeah.
She hadn't talked to her parents in years and years. She moved out because they said, "We're cutting you off. We're not paying for your stuff anymore." He did a whole bunch of
Because she was
shady
spending so much
stuff.
fucking
Like
money.
they were paying for a furnished apartment, and he sold all the furnishings in the furnished apartment and then moved to San Francisco. And there was a warrant out for his arrest because the owner was like, you sold all my shit. You know, but because he was a spoiled brat
Well, I
and
like
his
her
parents
spunk.
cut him out, he was like, didn't talk to him for his last 12 years of his life. He
No
sent
way.
over 50 postcards wherever he was in the world just to say, I'm okay. This is where I
that's
am. But he
sad,
never
yeah.
gave a return address. And there was actually a documentary made later about the 50 postcards that Divine sent.
No way.
And there's a really good documentary. I don't know where I saw it a few years ago. I want to say HBO. But chronicles his whole life and career. And you realize what a groundbreaker he was. He reminds me of Lee Bowery. Have you ever heard of Lee Bowery? We'll talk about that.
Another time.
It's two people. It's like the British version of Divine, like this trashy, I'm going to do outrageous things to make you challenge your own views. And why are you so disgusted right now? And why does it make you think you're better than me? Which really, to me, speaking for myself, that's Divine's legacy. I'm going to eat that. I'm going to take a dump in a box. I'm going to eat that dog shit. I'm going to make myself look crazy and ugly and wear real tight dresses, and you can see my rolls.
I feel like that's going to be Kendall's housewife tagline. I'm going to eat that shit.
Oh, again.
Oh,
Until it runs out.
all right.
So in and also he was so big at the time in 1988 that they were making the animated version of Little Mermaid, and he was the inspiration for Ursula.
Oh, wow.
Get out.
Yeah.
That actually seems pretty.
And if you know who Divine is, so y'all watch Divine after this, the clips and everything, Ursula is Divine. that kind of like in your face, big, sexy.
Yeah.
I mean, because let's be honest.
And who's playing Ursula in this?
Ursula's a big, sexy.
I've only seen the
octopus
animated
lady.
one,
Is it
but
still
I mean,
Melissa McCarthy that's going to play?
No,
it?
I don't think they have announced it yet.
She dropped out.
Okay.
Yeah. So that came out. That was Little Mermaid came out in
91.
It was filmed
89.
in 1988.
89. No,
No, it came out in
89.
1989. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was 89.
But it was
before
being
Spencer
filmed
born.
when she was at her peak, and Divine was actually, they're saying, oh, she hit it big, and because she was so different, people wanting her to do little projects. She was in town in LA to film an episode of Married with Children because that's very on brand
yeah.
for her.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
the white trash
Yep.
show. She did the rehearsal. They did the run through. She went back to her hotel and died in her sleep of an enlarged heart.
No way.
And in the press, in certain parts of the press, her funeral was a big deal. And Whoopi Goldberg even sent flowers to her funeral that said, "This is what happens when you finally make it big." She said, "See what happens when you finally make it." You
That's
die.
kind of tragic
Yeah.
and sad. So
what was she going to do on Married? Oh, sorry. Married
She
with
was
Children?
a guest star on an
Okay.
episode.
was she sick or it was just sudden?
She was overweight. It was.
Oh,
sudden.
yeah, yeah, but
yeah.
I mean,
It wasn't
yeah.
like she was.
It was like
struggling
not
with
like
issues.
she didn't have specific symptoms.
She died in
but
her
if you're-
sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Divine carried a lot on her back, huh?
Mm-hmm. Her front.
Yeah.
She ate it.
She didn't have a broken back. But speaking of broken back,
Speaking of broken backs,
And busted fronts.
so I'm actually really excited to talk about my topic this week, which is Brokeback Mountain. And I do feel like when most people think of Brokeback Mountain, they think of the movie that was released in 2005. But it actually, Brokeback Mountain was originally a short story published in the New Yorker this week, October 13th of 1997. So it's kind of an interesting story. So the author, Annie Prolux, she wrote this story because she wrote about rural America, and she wrote about people that had this idealistic, attainable world in their mind that they couldn't really achieve because of their kind of rigid life circumstances. And so she was sitting in a bar, and she noticed there was this cowboy sitting at the bar, and he was staring at all these men playing pool.
huh?
And she just thought, wow, what would it be like to be like a gay cowboy or ranch hand in the middle of rural America? And so she wrote this short story, and her MO was kind of to write short stories where there were gaps so that the reader could kind of fill in the gaps with their own personal experiences. So anyway, she writes this story, very well received in the New Yorker. It's a short story. She won like awards for it.
Which is crazy. I mean, to think about that story being, because I read it and I was like, I didn't read it at the time, but I was reading it as part of the podcast, and I was like, wow, and I was like, wow, this is somewhat like racy. Like when
Yeah.
you talked about penetration and things like that, and I'm like, given what we talked about earlier with the LGBT movement Stonewall 79 and then all, like, we didn't have rights, so that was like, although
Yeah.
the New Yorker is very liberal,
Yeah, but it's still,
publication,
yeah.
but that's still racist.
And so, and she, anytime she would write these stories, she really would try, she ruminated on this for months and months to try to put her mind in the, viewpoint of these characters. So she writes the story. It's a big hit. She gets a lot of fan press, like, oh my God, this is my life. Like, thank you for writing this, whatever. So then they, somebody writes a screenplay and they make it into a movie. And she was unaware that it was a movie up until it was, almost like, it was halfway being filmed or whatever.
Wait, she wasn't part of the
No, she wasn't part of the screenplay. Like, somebody had taken her story. So she had written the short story for the New Yorker. A couple of years later, she wrote a book that was a collection of short stories. So she expanded it a little bit, but it was still kind of the primary premise. And then somebody had written a screenplay, and they started filming. And she thought, oh wow, that's cool. So they made the movie, and she did an interview with The Advocate, the gay magazine, and she said, awesome. She said, I feel the characters did a great job portraying, kind of what I wanted to portray. she said, I really hope this generates a lot of discussion and opens some minds, things like that.
This was after she saw the movie.
Right after she
Okay.
saw, like right when it was released, pretty much.
But was she even a consultant in the movie? Like,
No.
No?
She had kind of
no-
found out.
She
Yeah.
was no part of the. I think that's a little crazy.
Yeah.
This, I mean, going back to like some of the gender issues, right? I mean, how was she not like paid, compensated, or at
Yeah.
least a consultant?
Yeah. And so the thing is, and I'm pretty sure she's not, because I mean, everything that I was able to find in my research, she wrote the thing. She found out kind of like well into its production that it was being filmed, whatever.
Yeah.
And so initially she said, great, love it, hope it opens some minds, generates discussion, whatever. So then several years later, she admits, she goes, she regrets ever writing the short story. And her thing is, because, and I kind of want to talk about this
Shocked
because
face.
it also, like, I got a feedback from one of our listeners similar. So the movie's made, and she got a ton of fan mail that said, from, quote, straight guys, that said, you don't really understand men. Here's the thing. If that would have really happened, he would have, so for the listeners that don't know, Brokeback Mountain is about two men that meet, like they're doing a summer job in the middle of Wyoming watching some sheep. They develop a romantic relationship, but because they're in Wyoming and it's whatever time, they go on, they each get married, they each have kids, but they meet up a handful of times over the years, for...
a mouthful of times.
Yes, for some fun. And I really think they cared about each other, loved each other. It was just a different time and place, and they couldn't really be together. So all of these, quote, straight guys emailed her and said, you don't really understand men. If this really would have happened, you should... And they basically recommended a more realistic ending or a different ending. And they said, you should have made it happily ever after where somebody found somebody else, or... this guy would have, like, when he lost the love of his life, he would have, like, hit and quit every guy in town. And it was even pornographic, some of these endings and things like that. And these readers even wanted praise for, like, kind of thank me for recommending a more accurate ending. And so she said, I just got so irritated and frustrated because her intent was, I want to reflect an issue at a time and a place. And she said, I wrote the short story to reflect homophobia in rural America.
So interesting that she got it so much more than...
And it wasn't about the
great
character. She said, in my mind, it's kind of interesting, too, because she said, when I wrote it, the characters were secondary. The whole point of my story was homophobia in rural America. But when she saw that cowboy, she wrote that story. She ruminated on this for months and months, and she said, I honestly just felt like passion for my characters, like almost empathy or sympathy for my characters for years afterwards. And that kind of dwindled down. And when the movie was released, she said that was reignited, and she's just felt for them, like. Yeah. I don't know what emotion, but felt for them.
She was very ahead of her time.
Yeah, and so it's kind of interesting.
But it is a unique perspective. I mean, that's why I like.
Yeah.
I mean, Kendall never liked going to sit at a bar. Thankfully, Spencer he will accommodate me. But I do like sitting at a bar because Tony, what you were talking about earlier, like sitting at a bar, you do some unique people watching. And I remember sitting at a bar one time, and I was at a gay bar, but I saw there was the bartenders were talking to this guy across the bar, and he was a married man on a business trip. And I was just thinking, like, my gosh, like, this guy he was talking about his wife and two daughters, and here he sits at a gay bar. And I started to, like, put myself in his shoes and just try to, like, that's such a unique experience. And, like, the fact that she was able to, I think, accurately portray, like, what that love, like, not just from that moment, but then extract this whole, like, love, like, dynamic, this relationship was really... I mean, it's a testament to her, which is surprising that she's
and to me,
now like, I don't...
It makes me want to read more of her stories because, like, her whole thing, apparently all of her short stories take place in rural America, and the premise of all of them is somebody that has this kind of, this is my ideal life, but here's what my constraints are. Because, coming from, so what, a couple of reasons I wanted to talk about this today were, this just came up right now, but there are so many like women or whatever that this is my ideal life, but I'm stuck in Montana. And I remember reading something about during the 2016 election where this lady, she was from, I think, rural Wisconsin, and she said, I have 2 daughters. I want to vote for Hillary, but my husband won't let me. And she couldn't.
Won't let.
Yeah. But, that's very common in Montana. Like, women cannot tell their husband how they voted. But anyways, one of the reasons I wanted to bring this up was...
they lie when they're having sex, that's for sure. What's a good Montana name besides Tony? Hal isn't giving her
Esteline.
Exactly.
Getting her to orgasm every time. So she lies about that.
Esteline,
Exactly.
which is a name for men or women in Montana.
Yeah.
But I do remember I worked offshore at the time when this movie was released, and so I got a lot of like ribbing because they were like,
for your pleasure.
Yes, I wish.
I don't. Yeah.
But actually, one of my readers. So I was texting back and forth, or one of our listeners. I was texting back and forth with my friend Rhonda.
Oh, Tony's just spawned his own. He's writing a book about all this stuff, so he's got readers now.
No. But I was texting back and forth with my friend
glasses,
Rhonda, and she's like, "How's the podcast?"
The cheaters. That's what, by the way. A side note: I put on cheaters the other day. I was reading something, and Spencer like flipped out because I was like, I think my eyes were just tired, but I needed to put some glasses so I could read. And he was like, "What's happening?" And this was like right before my birthday, so I think it went on like I saw him processing it like, oh my gosh, my boyfriend's really old.
He's planning his move out.
That happened to me 2 years ago, where I was like struggling to look at something. And I was like, wait, what? And then I moved it far. I was like,
Yep. Cheaters.
Yeah.
All right. Your readers, your followers, listeners.
No. So
Beaters.
I was, a couple weeks ago, my friend Rhonda's like, hey, how's the podcast going? And I said, man, it's awesome. And I said, one of the things I really like is...
Glad to hear you listening, Rhonda.
Some of my straight friends are like, wow, I didn't think about it like that. Like, I didn't think about, when you try to get legislation passed, the whole include or not include the trans community. One of my friends is like, emailing like, hey, I'm thinking about a lot of things differently because of your podcast. And
Good,
she said,
bad, same, different? What do you mean?
Good.
Good.
Good. Yeah. Just from a straight person's perspective, I never thought of things like that. Like,
so we made her think more deeply on fisting.
yes.
Yeah, she's
him.
considering it now.
So Rhonda said, it makes me wonder how many straight how many closeted people are listening to your podcast. And I thought, I don't think there's any closeted people listening. I think it's like, either straight allies, gay people. But then, listening to this story, it makes me, I don't know, like all of her feedback was, she said the majority of my feedback was from, quote, straight men that let me tell you how men think, and they're going to like hit everything in sight if their true love dies. And to me, it makes me think, are they really like straight men,
Well, I say this from our social posts. Like, you can see who watches your story and on Instagram mainly. And so I see a lot of people that I'm like, oh, these folks are straight. Like, they are, and they're repeated watchers of our story on Instagram. So I think that's interesting because I'm like,
Are they cute?
Wow, you're calling them out.
Well, no, they're not. I don't think they're listening. I think it's easier to listen
90%
to
of our
watch
listeners
on your Instagram story because you can't, it doesn't show up in your history. Like, you watch the story, but it does show up. And so they probably are not listening because to download a podcast, this is Let's Talk About Gay Stuff, put that on your phone, that's going to be obvious, but to watch a story, it's not. So I think people are connected.
Yep.
Can we give a shout out to Martha Doyle?
Martha! Love you. She's our biggest fan. She listens to every episode.
She beat Kendall in the quiz show episode, which is our #1 quiz show episode that's going to be followed up. It is quickly rivaled with Tammy Wallace's quiz show.
Go
episode.
Tammy!
And Tammy wants a redo with you, because she thinks she can beat you.
She does?
Yeah, in the quiz show.
Tammy's involved in a lot. I think we can totally do a redo.
All right, she wants.
Yes.
She wants.
Oh, we should
a
do
rematch.
it.
Not a redo. A redo is I wasn't looking.
A rematch. Yes, we should do it.
All right,
yes.
all right. I've trampled all over your.
Yeah. No. So I mean,
And Kendall is just lost. He's ready for Bourbon Street.
my whole thing was
I was hosting.
like very interesting
that
story
one.
because I feel most people just think, oh, I saw the movie and that's all there is to it. Very not really controversial, but there's a lot behind it, and it's very interesting to me, especially since she regrets doing it, and a lot of her feedback is from straight men.
The regret is just because of like the.
She
feedback
regrets
got?
doing it because she got
She regrets doing it because what?
She regrets doing it because she got so much feedback that was like, you did it wrong, and people just missed her meaning, and she thought, you know what? It's kind of like an artist saying like, oh, somebody's saying, oh, I could do that much better than you, whatever.
Something Mariah
a
would
million people saying that. She just got so irritated she was bombarded after the movie.
Wow,
bamboozled even.
I feel like that's a testament. Like, how much feedback did she get that she was like I regret this now
Because the thing
it was such a like monumental thing in
Yeah.
LGBT
I think it was
history,
like they missed.
But it wasn't big at the time.
No, it was.
Oh, it
No.
was huge.
Before the movie.
No,
Oh,
right,
not-
yeah.
yeah.
No, so after the article was written, she got a lot of letters, but they were all, thank you for writing this.
Letters?
Like, this is my story, things like that. After the movie, it goes mainstream, right? And every person in America, and it was very, like, people on the offshore rigs were, like, watching it to be like, fucking faggots, and stuff.
You can say it. It's a podcast. We mark it explicit.
So, I feel like the reason she was irritated was everybody was like, this is how it should have ended. And she's like, you totally missed my meaning. My meaning was not about, like, her thing was the characters were secondary. The issue was homophobia in rural America.
So, well, go ahead.
Oh, no. So she was just like, I think she was irritated with the bombardment of this is how it should have been. And she's like, even if she agreed with them, it's like, don't tell me. Like, I think it was just the volume.
But isn't that 2019 on Twitter? Like, I mean, we talked about this last week. Like, Pete Buttigieg's not gay enough, and it's just like we've come so far that now
That's a luxury now to
Yeah.
have the debate of if they're gay enough instead of are they too
yeah.
gay.
But I think it's interesting that straight men were. Like,
Well, and quote straight men,
unquote.
and that's why I feel like it's I don't know, closeted people. I don't know, like.
So on the storyline, what do you think? Did it resonate with you guys? Like,
So me, it actually
especially
resonated.
you, Montana.
So with me, it resonated.
The story resume?
As far as like,
Not particularly.
well, like the fact that they were. I really do think they were truly in love with each other and had a connection, and they couldn't pursue it. That resonated with me because, as we talked before, Montana's like a lot of Montanas. They don't have, religion isn't their basis for discrimination. It's just
Not like in Texas and Louisiana.
right. It's just macho, old school, and like I remember like Gene Hackman, the guy that was like saw him in the binoculars, like, it just. I do feel like. I resonated with the fact that, like, that's reality. Like,
Yeah.
to me, that was reality.
Well, I think that's how I pictured how a gay relationship would work. Like, you had to do it on the down low. Like, it was just like, that's what.
And, like, I feel like just like his wife at the very end, I mean, she knew he was gay, but it's like, I don't know. In my whole mind, up until, I did come out, like, in my late 20s, it's like, that's what you face. I mean, alienation or living your true
You
self.
faced aliens.
Right, which is what we talked about last week.
Alien
In our coming,
My
coming out
connection
episode.
to Brokeback Mountain was that I want a date. My boss asked me on a date. I want a date with my boss. Horrible idea because things
Yeah.
changed after that.
We're-
I don't know why I just agreed to it. We had carnal homosexual relations after
I'm sorry,
that.
Kendall. I got distracted. We have some friends and they are simulating sexual relations on the bed. That's
Oh, can I watch? Can I
that,
watch? Wait,
that,
where's
you
this
know,
going on?
the bed that has yet to be consummated.
Wait, is Martha there? Can I
Yeah,
participate?
Martha was part of the threesome. Sorry, Justina, if you're listening.
Anyway, that's
It
sign.
was not a real thing.
It's a
It was
sign to wrap it
simulation.
up, boo.
Huh? Well,
Let's go see the real thing
You're the
on
one
Bourbon
going on.
Street.
Oh, Rawhide?
right.
Okay, we're cut.
It's
We're
recording
going to
me off
Rawhide.
this time.
we're going to Rawhide.
But
we
we're
go.
only not going in the back room because I don't want to get arrested.
Yeah.
We're going to.
Yeah, you don't have to get arrested this time. Just take off the R Spoopy shirt. All
Just
right.
molested.
So, we good?
I'm good.
It was a good episode. I
Thank you, my baby.
enjoyed our Kiki today. So thank you guys. In New Orleans, we did it live.
New Orleans edition.
Martha, will you do us a favor and open that so we can hear some
Get
sounds?
some air in here.
No, open up. She's opening up her pants.
Gunshots
No.
and screaming.
You can hear some
Fish market
sounds.
is open
Join
now.
us in the episode in the spirits of New Orleans as Spencer's.
Oh, this was like church.
We were, oh, there it is.
No.
So now you guys can
Be here.
hear some of the sounds of
Can
New
they
Orleans.
smell though?
No, you can't smell it. You can just imagine. You can hear the sounds of New Orleans.
Look at them bitches.
We are having a good time. We are celebrating Tony turning 40, me turning 40. We've got another friend of ours that is joining us turning 40.
Wait, who else is turning
not
40?
anywhere near
My
40.
friend Gina, who's coming, who's
Oh, okay,
who's
nice,
joining us,
okay.
she is turning 40 soon. Although I'm sure she didn't want us to know that. We've got Brian here again.
Brian Bordelon.
Woohoo! Brian is joining us.
Sleeve is
We
here.
got Martha here. We got
Sleeve.
Sleeve. We got a fun house tonight. So thank you guys for listening. If it sounded like we were talking at a lightning speed, we definitely were because we're trying to get.
But I
out
feel
to
we
Bourbon
covered a
Street.
lot, so it was a good
Well,
episode.
we
Yeah.
covered a lot of ground. So thank you for listening to our podcast and kicking with us this week. A special thank you to the guy who keeps our sound in check.
Thank
Spencer.
you.
God. Oh, never mind.
Thank you to Martha for giving us drinks while we were kicking. Don't forget to
Thanks,
subscribe
Martha.
so you can hear future episodes. Visit our website at letstalkaboutgaystuff.com. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Let's Talk About Gay Stuff and on Twitter at Talk Gay Stuff. Leave us a review too.
You can find us at the clinic.
Wherever you listen to our podcast. Leave us a review. Tell us what you think. And if you don't want to do it in public, you want to keep it a secret, you can drop us a line at letstalkaboutgaystuff@gmail.com. It's been a little quiet on the email front, so drop us an email.
Have you checked Grindr?
Grinder, and Tony's new profile is the Let's Talk About Gay Stuff t-shirt
Yes.
logo. So, all right. Also, give a listen to our sister podcast, Our Spoopy Podcast.
That's our Spoopy Podcast at our Spoopy Podcast.
Nobody. You don't have a mic, boo.
Our
I'm sorry.
Spoopy, Our Spoopy, Our
If you can
Spoopy.
hear me, I can hear myself.
Our Spoopy has all of the spoopiness. It's Halloween. It's October, Halloween season, Spoopy month. They are also doing some riffs off their Spoopy podcast and talking about drag stuff. So if you like Drag Race, UK Drag Race, you like Dragula, take
all
a
of it.
listen to them. And so we are gonna go now to Bourbon Street.
Let's
We're
do
here.
it.
We're here.
We're queer.
Get used to it.